I don't tell people what to do. And we are having roasters and producers have really open conversations. And the only thing I'm tending to say to roasters before is if you are asking questions of the producer, you give information back. This is, I don't believe, and I will quite happily say, I do not believe in this one-way street. You don't have a call with them and you glean all the information you can so that you can then turn around and think, okay, well, this is how I'm going to carry on buying spot coffee from a trader in Europe. And you've just taken because we've had enough of taking. We need to stop taking and we need to start behaving in a very grown-up way. And that grown-up way is understanding that our suppliers are part of our business model. And we have to look after them. And if we don't, we cannot ever expect them to look after us in return. Why should they?
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a very informative 5-part series with Emma Haines from Algrano. Before we move forward, this episode actually is about the market. How we're currently experiencing the rapid shift in coffee. In this series so far, we have mentioned Algrano about 500,000 times. And Emma, I just want to confirm for everybody that there is no financial arrangement between Mapper Forward and Algrano. We're not getting paid for this. There's no anything like that, correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know a lot of, I know what Algrano is. I know how Algrano works. I know that they have a lot of fabulous folks that work for them, but I don't really know a lot about the ins and outs of how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious about it. And of course, you're connected to Algrano. So this is a conversation about what you're an expert at, not necessarily what Algrano's an expert at. So
Mm-hmm.
I just,
Yeah.
for our audience's sake, that's
Yeah.
the situation. We don't make money from this podcast. I just want to reiterate that for everybody. But if you do want to support the podcast, there are ways that you can do that. Check the show notes. You can become a YouTube subscriber. You can join our Patreon. We are working on getting this, the subscription, how you can have on your podcasting apps. You can subscribe for a couple of dollars a month and you get ad-free and blah, blah, blah. We're working on making that happen. But in the meantime, our education and mastermind groups and consulting and Patreon and whatnot, that's what funds the running of this business. This is clearly my full-time job because the podcast is a full-time job on its own. So anyway, now that
Very
boring
watching the market lately.
yeah. I'm not one of the people that's making money off selling the shovels. I'm like giving away the shovels. Here, fucking take one. Right. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, in case anyone was wondering if there is a relationship between Mapper Forward and Algrano, there's not. So, Emma, in this series, we're talking about how is the coffee supply chain changing in this moment. 2025 is the year of transformation. As we've been talking about pretty much for 2024 and 2025. And as I said in this episode, we're going to ask the question, how is the market currently experiencing the rapid shift in coffee? And I guess the way we start answering that is asking well, what part of the industry are you in? Because everyone is experiencing this in a different way. And whether you're a part of the main supply chain or the shadow supply chain, as I was referring to in the first episode, the way that you're experiencing this market shift is going to be different. You as somebody who's quite in the middle of all of it, how are you experiencing this market shift?
I think probably the biggest thing I've seen is this need for communication.
And when you say
And
that, when you say that, do you mean for you or for your clients or for who?
for clients, predominantly,
Mhm.
as in, I feel like most of my days at the moment are taken up with conversation around
Right.
what's happening.
Okay.
Um, but also, when I say clients, like clients on both sides, so producers as well,
Right.
because we're finding that a lot of producers that we work with and that we speak to, they don't know how things are being perceived in
Mm.
buying. And this is again inherently, one of the biggest issues in coffee historically has been we have this information flow and direction. It goes from origin out to roasters
Right.
and therefore out to consumers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't typically in the industry have this two-way communication.
Mm.
And that's a problem.
And there's usually a
That,
middleman, right? So
yeah, many very
yeah,
often.
yeah.
Like if I'm a smallholder, maybe in East Africa, and I grow coffee cherries, I maybe hire a boda and I take that coffee down to a washing station and I sell it as whole cherry and that's it. That is all I know about it.
Right.
I know no more. I
Yeah.
don't have the ability to find out more. I That's not an option to me. Maybe I'm also growing other cash crops, and coffee is just one of those things that I happen to grow and sell, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not everybody is that interested in finding out more, but there's a lot of growers who are saying, what's going on? What are you seeing in North America? What are you seeing across Europe and Asia? What are you seeing across, for me specifically in the UK and in Ireland? What are your roasters saying? How are they taking this? And I think that this two-way communication thing has become like really, really important.
Mm.
I was in a call the other day with a big buyer, somebody that has a history of buying coffee in the industry and has worked for previously. They're working for a new company now, but previously worked for a big, what we would consider like a commercial coffee company. And we were in a call, we had the producers, and I was in there kind of in the background. And then we had, the buyer and the end client, and it was all, conversation. And of course, price is one of the topics
Mm-hmm.
and how this can be managed and the risk can be lessened on both sides because it's a risk on both sides. Let me point that out. Everybody's screaming about how, buyers are having to pay more, consumers are going to be upset because the price of their flat white's going up. Well, hang on, there's a risk on the producer side as well. Like this is not
Yeah.
risk free for them. This is not just, oh, I'm going to earn a fortune and everything's wonderful. Like they're as fearful as everybody else that the bottom's going to drop out of the market suddenly as it went up. I'm not personally convinced it will, but there's always a risk, right? People have put a contract in because they are nervous,
Mm.
because they think, well, if I hold on, then maybe I can get it a bit cheaper if I wait to book. Well, you can wait to book, the coffee will be gone. You won't get any coffee. So like we have issues on all sides. But I was in this call the other day, and it was one of the most spectacular things because during this call, now bear in mind the two producers we were speaking to did not speak English, and there was a family member in there who was translating,
Mm-hmm.
and the buyer said, "Wait, we know what will benefit us right now in this conversation, but I want to hear from you. What do you need? What are your concerns on the phone? And what do you need?" And it was one of the most amazing moments that I'd had in all of this, especially of late, because this was somebody that has, as I say, a history in buying, big numbers, big volumes of commercial coffee, but they were so switched on and they were so mindful that this had to be a two-way conversation. And that this call that we'd arranged was not just them saying, "Can we get a cheap price? What can we do to get the contract cheaper?" That was not the conversation. The conversation was, we want to hear what's happening on the farm. We want to know what you're up against, and we want to see how we can support you. And it was just amazing. And I kind of wish sometimes that you could like bottle that and say to people like, it's not a quick fix. This is not something that like, oh, I have the secret for, ensuring that you don't have any more price worries. But I am seeing these relationships come to fruition and people have less worry because.
Is that a big part of what's going on now? This idea that a mindset shift is going to be required in order to meet this moment of this rapidly shifting market? Do you think?
Yeah, I think roasters are having to grow up really quickly.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. That's a really great way to put it.
It's like they're having to go through high school, college, and university
all at the same time.
A few weeks. Yeah, they're like, wow. Because again, historically, in recent times, and pretty much every roaster that I work with, I have some buyers that have been in the industry a really long time, and they are the ones that are way more, can I say, like level-headed about this, because they've been through before, or they're at least aware of it. But I am having buyers now, they didn't really understand what the C market was, the function of it, how it operates. They always assumed that, if they buy a specialty coffee, they are separated from the C market, which honestly is the biggest myth ever. And I don't know how we're still perpetuating that in some cases, because it's all associated. You can't escape it. It's all connected. Guys, we don't just have farms that are specialty coffee farms.
No.
Coffee is produced at different grades of different levels, on farms, and there will be a mix of different grades available. Some farms, some producers will focus on specialty lots, yes, but they will typically always still have, volume lots they need to sell. And there will always be a connection to the C market. And people have never really believed that before. Like, I've taught this stuff for years, right? And people will be like, yeah, whatever. I'm buying specialty coffee. I don't need to be concerned about this. And now they're realizing it, because now you're seeing, commodity coffee trading at higher rates than they were paying for their 84, 85 specialty last year. And they're saying, oh no. And what's happened is overnight, it feels, they've lost this point of difference. Because one of the selling points for specialty coffee was, well, we pay a premium to producers. Well, not anymore. Not anymore.
That's really interesting that you say that, because one thing comes to mind when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, and especially this, when we ask the question, how is the market currently experiencing the rapid shift in coffee? The first thing that comes to mind for me is with a lot of confusion.
Yeah, for sure. And misinformation.
Yeah.
A lot of misinformation.
Say more about that.
Again, we mentioned it in the last episode, but people having this idea that producers are earning a fortune.
Yeah, right.
Speak to a few growers and you'll realize the harsh truth.
But that goes two ways, right? Like, for the longest time, and rightfully so, coffee producers thought that cafe owners and roasters were driving around in Lamborghinis. And it wasn't until, I get messages from producers all the time. I didn't realize until I listened to your podcast that cafe owners are struggling. Well, and I can understand why coffee producers would see that differently. You're earning more money per cup than they're earning per pound. And so the disconnect there is that they're not calculating or getting insight into the cost of doing business. Yeah. Again, exactly. Everybody that's selling the shovels is making money off everybody in the supply chain. The landlords, the banks, the shipping companies, the logistics suppliers and brokers, the packaging companies, all of those people. But it's the producers of all the commodities that go into what we do, the coffee, the milk, the matcha, all of those producers. They're not making anywhere near as much money as what the people selling the shovels are making. Yeah. And we as an industry need to start taking ownership of the fact that we give away so much power to equipment manufacturers who we go to these trade shows and we see all the shiny shit that they've got to sell and we think, oh, I've got to have the latest thing, or I've got to participate so that I can't manage my FOMO, so I've got to go and spend the money on this next trip to Expo or Coffee Fest or whatever the fuck, World of Coffee. And instead, you could be attributing that money to paying for the kind of coffee that you want to have, securing lots that you need to run your business. I am being contacted by people panicked, really, really panicked in this moment. And this is how a lot of people are experiencing. They're like, I've got coffee until April. Tell me this is going to be sorted by then. If you haven't secured your coffee now for September, October, November,
December,
right. Like when we say that Peru's run out of coffee, that Central America's running out of coffee, that Brazil's running out of coffee, people, if one more person says to me, but don't worry, Ethiopia's having a bumper crop, folks, Ethiopia is the 7th largest producer of coffee in the world. You've got Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia ahead of them that are all having are expected to have record low years. It doesn't matter how much coffee Ethiopia produces; it's not coming close to making up for the origins before them.
Yeah, and it is this issue, right, where people, again, I think a lot of people have thought this is just a temporary hiccup. This is a storm in a teacup. We don't need to get too excited over this. And then it's gone on longer than people anticipated. And now people are starting to think, okay, maybe I should have paid attention a little while ago. Or maybe they were paying attention, but they were still feeling this level of disconnect because it hadn't hit them at that point. Like I'm hearing roasters say to me, yeah, but my competitor has not put their prices up yet. And I'm like, and you've just said it. Yeah. They haven't put it up yet. But look at the market. Like there have been, one of our founders, Raphael, said that he went into a supermarket in Switzerland and he saw roasted coffee cheaper than you could buy it at market level.
At green.
Because we're still cycling, for the green. So we're still cycling through that old coffee that was bought at a previously low point, right? But that will run out. That is already running out, and that will come to a stop. So when stocks are run down, and I mean, pre-booked, pre-contracted stocks for individual roasters, they'll be moving on to the new pricing. Even if the market does come to 390, 400, 380, wherever it will come to, it's not going to be the same as it was. Your prices have massively increased.
Tai Dang said in the series that we recorded with her, I was mentioning to her how like the last 5 cafes I've been to, all within the last week here in Dubai, it's all past crop coffee. And she said something that was so fantastic. She said, yeah, because past crop is fine now.
Of course it is.
Right? It's acceptable now to have past crop coffee.
Yeah.
Because everybody can afford past crop coffee, but that's going to disappear as well, folks. At the runway that you have, the first runway that you have is how much coffee you've got in your warehouse or that you've got contracted. The second runway is the past crop coffee that's in country that you have decided that you're too good to buy before is probably all you're going to be able to afford to buy if you haven't put your prices up. And then it's a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And that's when people are going to become aware of the sound of so many heads hitting the ground and the mortality of their businesses. And this is not about doom and gloom. I'm actually hopeful about the fact that we are in this situation and it is going to force us to reimagine what the future of this industry has to be. And that is a wonderful thing. It is an important thing for us so that we can find some stability in this market moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think, like, depending on where you are in the chain, right?
Right.
You could listen to this and it could be quite frustrating because it's almost like I might sound like I'm simplifying things, and that's not what I mean. But I think it is a challenging time. It's a challenging time for everybody, right? The difference, like we said earlier, the difference now is that it's a challenging time for roasters and not just producers, as it historically has been, right?
Right.
Normally it's just Origin struggling. Now it's everybody. So now we're all paying attention. Now I'm seeing um, posts and LinkedIn and, all sorts. And all of a sudden, everybody's become a market expert.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everybody knows what's happening. I mean, I heard somebody the other day quite confidently saying to their customers that the price would come back down to $2 a pound.
Are
And
you
I
for
was
real?
like, I was like, seriously, you this information. But I think you really need to research a little bit more and maybe have a few more conversations because
With
I
different
wouldn't be
people?
betting on it.
No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I think we are, we're in a really unusual time. And
Mm.
I think that what I meant earlier about like roasters are having to get this like education very quickly. It's a lot, right? You
Mm.
may be coming to coffee, especially specialty coffee. You come into specialty coffee because you like coffee. You set up a roastery because you
Right.
decide you want a career in coffee, right? Maybe you're a really good roaster. Does not mean you're a really good trader or a really good speculator or really good at understanding what is going on with, global economics or global politics.
Yeah.
We're seeing everything at the moment, right? Global logistics, everything is all hitting us at once.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're an expert in climate change. You're having to teach yourself how to run a business, how to employ staff, how to be a marketer, how
Mm.
to, be the best roaster you can and be competitive in your local market. And so I think people are at this moment where they're saying, you know, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I don't know the next step. And I think the truth is, what we have to say is actually, if everybody was honest about it, nobody truly knows the next step. I don't know anybody. We could see this coming with the market, but I would never, ever have said to you, Lee, it would be so quick, that it would happen
Oh, no.
so suddenly to a point. I knew it needed to happen. We've
Yeah.
been seeing the signs for years and years and years, but I didn't realize it would happen in both markets, because that's the other thing. We always talk about Arabica, we're never mentioning Robusta. And
Yeah.
that's a huge part of the coffee industry. And we've seen Robusta hitting all-time highs again and again and again. And those markets are connected. You're not going to see a super high Robusta market and at the same time see a really low Arabica market. So, we have to be paying attention to this and people are having to learn. And I think like one of the things that I'm kind of really trying to say to roasters is number one, it's never too late.
Mm.
Like those who had already established relationships at Origin, I will say probably are going to fare better than you now.
Mm-hmm.
And why shouldn't they? Why
100%.
shouldn't they? Because they made the step when, maybe their competitors were afraid to or were lured in with a slightly lower price
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere, buying it spot. So why shouldn't they be in a position where they're going to be able to weather this storm
Mm.
with their business partners and their business, essentially their business associates and those that they have these relationships with, and that is their growers, their producers. Like I think that is something that they should get. But at the same time, I don't think it's too late for people to make those steps, right? Like it's never too late. And I have been party to, and I don't want to say I've led because I try to always be in the background. I'm a
Facilitate.
facilitator. I don't tell people what to do. And we are having roasters and producers have really open conversations. And the only thing I'm tending to say to roasters before is if you are asking questions of the producer, you give information back. I don't believe, and I will quite happily say, I do not believe in this one-way street. You don't have a call with them and you glean all the information you can so that you can then turn around and think, okay, well, this is how I'm going to carry on buying spot coffee from a trader in Europe you know, and you've just taken, because we've had enough of taking. We need to stop taking, and we need to start behaving in a very grown-up way. And that grown-up way is understanding that our suppliers are part of our business model. And we have to look after them. And if we don't, we cannot ever expect them to look after us in return. Why should they? You know, because we have to break this cycle. And I think like that is the thing that people are coming to the realization of now. They're like, you know, maybe I had an opportunity and I should have taken it then, but I didn't. And I'm just going to do the next best thing, and that is address it now. You know, and I genuinely think that is how people will weather the storm better, by being open about it. I mean, I would, you know, my final point on that is that, like, I can't say to you, a producer, just because you have a buying relationship direct with a producer does not mean that they can or should sell their coffee below market value to you. Like, that is not what I'm implying. But what they will do is you will have this year-round communication with them. So you'll be ready.
You informed. Yeah. You
will be informed. And if you want a successful business, being informed as early as possible is going to allow you to make the right. But you are going to know what is rolling down that hill very quickly towards you. It won't come as a shock. So you can make informed decisions. And I think that is critical. Really, really critical. Now, for most roasters, more than ever. I mean, I have said it's been critical for a long time, but, you know, now people are listening. Now people are sitting up and understanding.
And we needed the mainstream media to help. A lot of roasters started realizing that this was serious when Bloomberg and the Financial Times and those kinds of publications were talking about this. That's when they became aware of it. I mean, it's like, wait, Bloomberg had to talk about it before you believed that something was real in your own industry?
Yep. Yeah. Well, consumers are coming to them and asking questions.
Right. Well, and
I've read about this. What's going on?
It says a lot about our industry, an industry that cocks on about community so much, that we're so mistrusting of each other's information.
Yeah.
So the next episode, we're going to talk about how the market shift is redefining what it means to be a stakeholder in this clusterfuck. So join us for that episode, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward.